Hey guys, Kyle Cordiana here. So this is gonna be my recap for my first top 5 finish. This happened at Lewis Smith Lake, late March, in Coleman, Alabama. I'm really excited to share with you guys the stuff that I did, and the rods, the baits, the techniques, the stuff that I did to have the success that I had. And so I'm just gonna get right into it. But basically, late March, Lewis Smith Lake, spotted bass have not spawned yet. There may be some starting to spawn, but for the most part, you got pre-spawn, big, old, fat, delicious spotted bass that for the most part are pursuing herring. Blueback herring is what the main forage is for those bass. There is some shad, some other stuff there. But anyway, so it's a different fishery. If you've not fished a herring fishery, you got a lot of fish that are very nomadic, chasing balls of bait around. And the new Lowrance active target was the deal here. It really is what caught all my fish. I probably caught 80% of my fish because I could look at them, see them, and most of the time they were somewhere that you wouldn't have made a cast, out in the middle of nowhere. But picking the bait that got in the bite was important. And so the main bait that I used was a Jawtech punch shad. You've seen me throw this in Florida if you followed my Florida stuff, but this is the punch shad, and it was generated to handle heavy cover. So it's kind of a heavy duty plastic bait, but it looks a lot like your typical boot tail bait if you look at it just in plan view. But if you turn it kind of what I'm gonna call profile view, that's the engineer in me coming out, you can see it's fatter when you turn it plan view, profile view. So it's almost like you squashed it, because that's the way the bait's gonna swim, like that. So what this does is it gives a bait kind of a rolling action as it's swimming along with the tail paddling. So it's a unique look. It's a look the fish don't get to see a lot. But again, it's still your swim bait kind of stuff. The plastic's real hard and durable. So you get a little bit of difference in the way it swims because of the durability of plastic, but it doesn't tear up at all, which is great for punching and stuff. But you might lose just a little bit of the swimming compared to your softer plastic, but it's different looking to the fish with that roll. So that's really what the different plasticity offers on the bait. The color, these are brand new. They're going to come in a shell. They don't even have a color name yet. I mean, we're just going to call this kind of a flashy shad, natural shad color. Got some black pepper flake in it. But I threw that a lot. It's about 3.75 inches. And what I figured out during some of my practice time is I was throwing the shad color, if you will, and I just tried to mix it up, and I wanted to make it chartreuse. So I just quickly pulled out my chartreuse garlic pen and just marked it all up, and they really liked that. That bite started to fade away from the chartreuse, and they started to get more back on just the natural kind of shad color. But I was throwing it on a few different size heads and a spinning rod whenever I was skipping the docks. So I caught a lot of my fish in open water, but when I got around the docks and I wanted to skip way up underneath the boat slips and the floats, to avoid getting a backlash, a lot of times I went to the spinning rod, 8-pound line. I ended up getting my heart broke a little bit on this. I lost a really big one just because you got to baby them so much on that 8-pound line that I ended up eventually going solely over to a bait caster and just dealing with the backlashes and the overruns, trying to skip it with the bait caster. But nevertheless, I was able to catch some really big fish on those docks. I'm going to tell you what I think was happening. So on day 1 and day 2 of the tournament, if you watch my videos, I really got the bulk of my weight fishing on a few subtle offshore flats. It's not really something that showed up on your contours. They were really subtle. They were typically in between long stretches of docks, and they were just an area where the bank came out and it was a little flatter. It was 10 to 15 foot deep. A couple of them did have some structure on it, like a brush pile. The fish weren't really on the brush pile, but the brush pile was there, and I think it helped keep bait in the area. But what I'd do is I'd pull up and I'd deploy my trolling motor, and I'd look across there with my active target forward-facing sonar, and if they were there, you knew it immediately. So again, I was panning out on these flats, 15 foot deep, let's say, and you just see a wad of fish. You just see dots all the way across the water column, but they were only like 3 to 5 foot deep. And if they were up there, it was game on. I'd take that punch shad, throw it out there over the top of them, and reel it through, and they'd just bump it. And they'd miss it sometimes, and you may only get 1 or 2 chances, but a lot of times I could throw back in there, and there was a few times I caught 2, 3 in a row doing that. And it was just a blast. Also in practice, I caught a really big one that coughed up a herring. If you saw it, it was about a 6 or 7 inch herring. It was longer than my hand. It draped over my hand on both ends. Really big herring. So these punch shads are 3.75 inches. So I did grab a 4.8 inch, another boot tail swim bait. It's a Kitech. I did throw that some, and I did get some bigger bites on that. So I did deploy the bigger boot tail swim bait that was almost a 5-inch swim bait. I think that was important to mix that up. But most of the fish, you get a lot more bites on the smaller one, but I did get a few key bigger bites on that bigger swim bait. But so those fish were on those flats, and you could see them, they were active and they were there. And I noticed into day 3, I started on those flats and it just was not happening. And I started fishing around, and I caught just one here on a point, one here on a point, and then I got to a dock. And I got a couple bites on docks in practice, but it wasn't the deal. And I caught a pretty good one on a dock. And then I got another bite on a dock. And then as my day kind of dwindled down at the end, it started to sink in a little bit. Man, these docks are starting to become a bigger player for me in the part of the lake I was in. And I was down lake by the dam. It was clean, clearer water than up in Ryan Creek. And I noticed some of the docks I got bit on were isolated docks that were really over bluff edge banks and deep water. And so on day 4, again, I'm trying to go replicate what I'd done on 1, 2, and 3. And I got the camera boat on me. It's my first time to be on live, and I'm catching crappie, and I'm catching a little striper and little bass that don't measure. And I'm not impressing nobody, including myself. But I kind of told them that I was going to start an area where maybe we'd get a few keepers just to get the ball rolling. I knew my stuff down by the dam was getting better as the day went on. As that water warmed up, I was getting more bites. So I didn't want to get down there, run through some of my best stuff, not get a bite and feel discouraged. So it was really part of my plan. The camera boat gets out of my boat at 10 o'clock to go get on another angler's boat that's catching them. And literally my marshal gets in the boat. We catch one 10 minutes after he gets there. We start hitting these docks, and it is every single dock we hit. And I'm talking about isolated docks on bluff banks over sometimes 80 plus foot of water. The fish that had been in there, those were their winter haunts in that deeper, colder water. It was time for them to pull up, getting warmer water, getting a warming water column. And the only place that offered structure for them to do that without swimming a long way away or back into the back of a pocket were these docks. They could get up in the warming water column, have some structure over their head from the warming floats, but also these cables that stretched off the back. Some of my best areas were these docks that had these cables that came off at 45-degree angles, and you could look out there with your active target. You could see that cable coming down, and about 5-6 foot down it, depth of water, you would see all these fish around it, and they were big old spotted bass. And so I got hung on a lot of cables, but if you could get through there, you'd always bring 10 or 15 of them back to the boat, and then they were hard to catch, but those were the right ones. And we started running that pattern, and I just ran all new docks. Every dock I could find along the main river, up in Rock Creek, and there's another creek we went in. It didn't matter. If it had a bluff bank and an isolated dock, we pulled up, and I could make a long bomb. The furthest cast you could make, the first one down the back of the dock or along one of them submerged 45-degree cables, it was time for a bite. And it was a blast. We stumbled onto a big old 4.5-pound largemouth in 80 foot of water on a dock. And so that really fired us up. Thought maybe we can catch some big largemouth too to go with these big spots. On day 3 of the tournament, I almost catch 2 giant spotted bass on one swim bait hook. Right at the boat, almost set in the boat, almost had 2 spotted bass. Both of them were over 4.5 pounds. And that would have been a cool catch, but I didn't have enough hook out there to grab the second one. But ultimately, that was the deal. I did catch a big largemouth, or hooked one, jumped one off on a Jawtech French fry. This is a really cool little bait. If you guys like throwing finesse worms and trick worms and Ned rigs and stuff, this is kind of a meet in the middle. But this is the Jawtech French fry. I've developed a lot of confidence in that in a hurry. You can tell this color is just kind of a green pumpkin with some black and blue fleck in it. But what's cool about the Jawtech French fry worm, it's the exact same length, diameter, and everything all the way across. So if you start to tear up one end of the worm, just flip this dude around and re-rig it on the other side, and you got the same bait. So you can get a lot of use out of one of these, but it's just perfect. If you like worm fishing like I do, The Jawtech French fry is a perfect little worm to add to your arsenal, and it actually had the biggest largemouth that I had seen in practice. It hooked it, and I caught several other fish on it, including spotted bass too. They love it. But that's what I was doing. I was throwing all these on Kistler rods for a swim bait on a bait caster. I'm always throwing my Helium 3 7.3 light, medium, heavy. I love it. It is the best rod for a small finesse swim bait style deal. These are 3/8 ounce heads that I'm throwing on that. I was throwing it on 10 and 12 pound fluorocarbon. Got more bites on 10, but again, if you could get away with 12, I wanted to. These are the new Kistler reels. They are phenomenal. This is the Series 1. It has a little bit more upgrade from the Series 2, a little more expensive. But again, you got more ball bearings, you got a carbon fiber handle, you got a little gauge on here on the side of the handle where you can tell it what size line you got on it, so you can stick you a penny right in there and just turn that knob until you get the line weight that you got on there. That's a cool deal too. But man, I've been fishing these hard and they cast really well. I made some really horrible attempts to skip a bait, and it should have been backlash nightmare. And I got some overrun and some backlash, but I didn't have to pull it out but a couple of times to get it out of there. So they're really a forgiving reel. The drag system has been great for me. So buy with confidence. This is a 7.3-to-1, and they have the Series 2 as well. It's a little bit better on the pocketbook. Both of them are really good reels. This one again just has a few more ball bearings and just a few more whistles. But anyway, I love those a lot. On my spinning reel setup, this was a Johnny Morris Platinum 8-pound fluorocarbon. This is a 7-foot Kistler Helium 3. This is a medium action rod. And again, I'm throwing that on a little 1/4 ounce head, straight fluorocarbon. Just skipping underneath there and just slow reeling it back. Those fish weren't very deep. I wasn't letting it sink very much. I did catch a few of my fish deeper because Active Target saw one out there over 100 foot of water, 15 foot deep in the middle. The bank's here, the middle's over there. I look over there, I was like, there's just a fish sitting over there 15 foot deep. Surely that's not a bass. It looks like a 3-pounder. Throw my swim bait over there, let it sink down, reel it over its head. It swims up and eats it. 3-pound spotted bass. Would have never caught that fish ever without my Lowrance Active Target. And that's my first time to fish with that thing. So I've got a lot to learn, still learning, trying to learn how to crappie fish with it. But no doubt, it's gonna catch a whole lot more fish. I'm so thankful that I have it. Again, on the French fry, I throw a braid to a fluorocarbon leader. This is 15-pound braid to like an 8 or 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. Another Johnny Morris Bass Pro Shop spinning reel here. And this is the Kistler Helium. This is a medium action. I also have one rigged up on a KLX medium heavy, 7 foot. I like both of those. If I get a little bit heavier line, I'll go to the medium heavy. But that's what I did. We finished 4th place, had a really good day, caught almost, I can't remember, maybe almost 54 pounds of spotted bass. We did have one largemouth, but 54 pounds of spotted bass. We caught a limit every day. That's 20 spotted bass. That's averaging 2.6, 2.7 pounds of fish on a spotted bass fishery. That place is amazing. It is a blast to be there, especially pre-spawn. I'm sure it gets tough in the summer, but man, it's a blast when they're pre-spawn. So if you ain't got a chance to been to Lewis Smith Lake, I strongly recommend to get there in the months of March. Maybe February is good too, but March and April are definitely good. So go check that out. Click like, click subscribe, ask any questions you want if I missed something, but that was pretty much a 1-2 punch. It was a swim bait and a French fry, the Jawtech punch set and a little trick worm. That's really all I had in my arsenal. I did mix it up a little bit. I did have some with the blade in practice that you saw if you watched the practice videos, and I did play with that chartreuse. You can see I had just a chartreuse tail on here, and then this one here was one I had to take off because I beat it up so much. But that was just just a white one with no color to it, and they ate it all. So anyway, go check out some of the new baits by Jawtech, and thanks for watching. I'll quit rambling on, but on to the next one at Lake Murray in South Carolina. Never been there, another herring fishery, but not gonna be chasing spotted bass there. It's gonna be largemouth. And so we'll get there and see what we learn and try to employ some of the Active Target technology I'm learning while I'm crappie fishing with my dad. So thanks for watching. Later.